Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Dead City video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about, I guess, the big reveal here of the episode, and that is a lot of Hershel's story, but I more want to talk about what specifically happened with Negan, because I think that that story there is going to be really interesting here going forward for the rest of the season, and how Hershel feels about him overall, because I think that that's something that a lot of us are talking about, and I think that after this episode, a lot of people are taking things in different ways, and so, yeah, I want to talk about my thoughts on all that, so definitely make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. I will be doing some other videos on Dead City tomorrow as well, on some of the stuff that we saw in this episode, and also some stuff for episode 4, so yeah, stay tuned for all of that, but let's get into what happened in this episode here. So the big reveal in this episode, and it was something that happened very fast, obviously, and that was that Hershel and Negan actually saw each other here in this episode. Now, I will actually say, for Negan, I think his story was it wasn't underwhelming, because it was actually pretty good, I would say, overall, but I think that it just didn't make a lot of sense for the character to, I guess, go to Central Park, because the whole point of his story, was literally like, well, I'll go there and see if Maggie and everyone are there, basically, and then I'll come back and I'll let you know whether or not they're there, right? Like, I think that it's kind of silly in that sense, right? Like, I think for the character to actually go there for that reason, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and also it's not that smart for the Croat to allow Negan to go there, right? Like, I know that he was saying, like, I want you to, become your old self, because Dama has realized that you're not really there, right? Like, you're not fully your old self yet. So I get it in that sense, where it's like he wants Negan to prove himself, overall, but I think that there was probably a better reason that you could have come up with there. I mean, it doesn't really necessarily matter. I think that what you wanted from, the episode was Hershel and Negan actually seeing each other, right? And getting like that encounter there. But yeah, I would say that, the reasonings for him going to Central Park was, it didn't really make a lot of sense. For Maggie, yeah, obviously, they're trying to get to Manhattan, they're trying to get to the Croat and Dama and whatnot. So, like, a lot of that makes sense. But yeah, I think for Negan, it didn't really make a lot of sense, but overall, episode 3 was a great episode. And I will say, I've seen some, I guess, people saying that the episode was slower overall. And I think that that's one of those things where, for me personally, I've always liked like the slower episodes when it's more focused on like the character stuff. Like, I don't always need all of these like explosions or like crazy action happening in every episode, or like, like, I guess, like bigger deaths and all that in these episodes. I'm okay with like more of the, character story stuff. And I think that this one here gave us a lot of Hershel character story, and really confirmed a lot of stuff that, hasn't really necessarily been confirmed on the show yet. It was things that we all speculated on in terms of how Hershel feels about like Negan, or, I guess the connection with Dama and whatnot. But that's what we got in this episode, was the connection between Dama and Hershel, and why that mattered a lot, right? Like, if we never got this episode, a lot of it would make no sense going forward. So to me, it was my favorite of the 3. I really like this one a lot, because I like stories like that. And episode 2, the boat scene was really cool. And episode 1, I think, was just, looking back at all 3 episodes now, I would say it was just like an average episode. It was a good premiere, it kind of set up everything, but there was nothing crazy that happened in the episode, right? Like, overall, I liked the ending scene quite a bit, but I would say for me personally, I liked episode 3 the most. But obviously there will be some that, feel differently about the episodes overall. And I've actually seen a lot of people say that they never really liked episode 3 too much, but episode 2 they really liked. So it's just going to be one of those things where I think, it depends on like what you like from stories overall, right? Like, you might like a lot of stories that have a lot more action in it. Maybe you like more of the drama type of stories. So I think it really does just, come down to like personal preference in terms of, what you like for stories overall. But that's what I like from this episode here. And also, one thing that I've seen quite a bit is, I guess, the reaction to Negan and Hershel seeing each other for the first time. And like, I mean, it's been a really long time now, obviously. Well, I guess it's been 1 year, but what actually happened there was, pretty interesting overall. So, the scene, I will say, was pretty surprising. I was kind of expecting something like that to happen based off of some of the shots that we got previously in the other trailer or whatever for episode 3. So I figured that something like this would happen. But yeah, we actually see Hershel and Negan actually see each other for the first time in a while. And to me, what I'm seeing there in the scene is Hershel actually really angry at Negan and wanting him dead. And literally, he pulled the trigger on the gun, so he wanted him dead. Like, to me, that's how I see the scene overall. But I've seen others say that Hershel, doesn't really care about him and doesn't want him dead. But I think he says that to Maggie because it's not what he cares about overall. He doesn't want revenge in that sense, but I think that, yeah, I mean, obviously if he sees him, like we literally saw the scene, like he wasn't expecting to see him, and it was like this real reaction he had to him, right? Like he saw Negan, and it was just like all of this anger came out, and he was like, I want him dead kind of thing, right? And I think that right there is how he really feels towards him. I think that what he says after that is more of like, yeah, obviously he doesn't feel the same type of anger towards him that Maggie would feel, right? Or maybe has felt in the past, because he wasn't there. He doesn't understand. Obviously she was and whatnot, right? So I think that like Maggie would obviously feel a little bit differently. Hershel, I think, is sort of, it's more of the fact that he has had such a huge presence in their lives, right? Like Negan has had such I would say a really, bad presence in Hershel's life. Like because of him, Maggie doesn't focus on Hershel at all, right? Like she's so obsessed with him, and like, he doesn't have a father or anything like that. And I think as he's getting older, he's realizing exactly what Negan did. And it's one of those things where I do think he's going to want revenge, because he's different than Glenn. Like Hershel is a lot like Maggie, I would say, because he wants revenge, right? Like Glenn, I would say, was a character that really tried to see the positive or like the good in all people. Like he really was just more on that side of everything. Like even somebody like Negan, like I think that if Glenn never died there, I think that, if Abraham just died, I think Glenn at this point, if Negan was like on this redemption arc and went through all of what he's been through overall, I think that Glenn would have been like, all right, like I forgive you sort of thing. And he can see the good in what he's done, because like they've all done horrible things on this show, right? Or just in The Walking Dead, they've all done just horrible things to survive. And so I think that that's how he would feel about the whole situation. But I don't see Hershel feeling the same way. I think that he's a little bit more like Maggie, where maybe he could eventually get there, but I think at first it's not going to happen that fast. I really do think that Hershel, is going to want revenge, because that just seems to be the thing with the character right now, is that he's really angry and he's almost rebellious in some way. And I think that that's why obviously he's sort of on, the Croat side or Dahmer side of everything here. And I just see it more like when I watch that scene, to me, it seems like Hershel has so much anger towards him. I don't really see it any other way. Like, to me, it seemed like, no, he actually wanted Negan to die in that moment. So, like, I think that going forward, you got to ask the question of like, well, does Hershel actually really want him dead? Does he want revenge for what happened to his father? Now, I think that's where it's a little different. Like I was saying, I don't think he necessarily wants revenge on like what happened to his father. It's more of what he's done to Hershel's life in general, because of the fact that his father's gone. Like, it's just really messed up his life overall. And again, I don't know if that's necessarily how he feels towards Negan, but I think that when he saw him there, it was just like all of that emotion, everything he felt, like he would want him gone, right? But I still think it is more also like he's very frustrated with his mom right now, right? Like I think there's a lot of issues there. So that's why, to me, when I saw that, I was like, okay, this is confirmation to me that Hershel does want Negan dead, but it's not going to be like this revenge story overall, right? But I think that it's going to be really interesting, because I think that that's one thing when it comes to all of this here for Hershel to move forward, is I think you have to have all three of them in a scene and just talking about everything, right? Talking about what happened, and Hershel just trying to understand why Negan did what he did, why Maggie feels the way that she feels, and just sort of like, finding a way to move past all of that there. And I feel like for Negan, that's what's going to be kind of interesting going forward here, is he saw Hershel's reaction and he left right away. And afterwards he paused, right? Like he was in the woods after, and he was just kind of like, I think he was shocked that Hershel felt like that. I think he's always kind of hoped that maybe Hershel would forgive him or not view him like that, because obviously Negan has always wanted to protect Hershel and whatnot. So I think that just seeing him react that way was really shocking for him. So I'm curious as to how that's going to play out this season. Like if Hershel sees him again, is it going to be the same type of reaction? Because it does look like Maggie is really just like, I don't want to say obsessed with him. It is just one of those things where I could totally see Hershel feeling like that. And I mean, that is kind of the thing that is interesting, right? Like I do feel like maybe that is something worth talking about, like in a different video where I can go like really in depth on this. But like Maggie really is obsessed with him, and it's one of those things where I feel like, I don't know why, like obviously she felt very bad, I would say, for, I guess giving him to Dama, to get Hershel back, but it wasn't something that she was going to go back to New York for, right? Like, I feel like she was just going to leave it there. Everything was good overall. I think that when you look at episode 1, that's sort of what Maggie mentions, is that everything with Hershel was really good for the last couple of months. Remember, the season 1 finale of Dead City and the season 2 premiere of Dead City is about a year apart, roughly. So, the last few months, maybe like the first however many months, things were kind of bad between both of them. But the last couple of months there going into the season 2 premiere, things were actually pretty good for Maggie and Hershel. So it seems like when this whole thing with Negan came up, like Hershel noticed immediately, like, and I mean, when you literally look at the scene there, Hershel, told her about what happened to him. And obviously he was in a scary situation there, right? And he was trying to like tell her about it all. And like, she didn't really, like, I'm not going to say she didn't care, but like her first reaction was like, what? Negan's there? Like, where is he? Did you see what happened to him? Like, why was he there? This and that. Like, she asked so many questions about him immediately. And I think that aspect to it there is something that really, obviously upsets Hershel quite a bit. And I think that's why he wants Negan to die, because I mean, he's still affecting their life quite a bit. And so I'm really curious as to how, a lot of their scenes are going to play out in the future, because obviously that wasn't their last scene, right? Like, that was something that was sort of teased here, I would say, for the season. And I'm curious as to where this is going to go overall. But yeah, anyways, I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post your thoughts down below. Do you think that Hershel wants him dead, or do you think that scene meant something else? Like, that's sort of how I'm viewing it. Like, I do get it. Like, maybe he's not necessarily like, oh, I want him dead because of what he did to my father, right? Like, I don't think he's really thinking about that right now. It is more, I think, because of the fact that Maggie is, always focused on him and like really ignoring Hershel. So it's more of a personal thing for him. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.